What if everything you knew about the Bible was whitewashed? What if every great man or prophet you know about was never white like Europeans and Americans of modern day? Not Adam, not Abraham, not Moses, not even Jesus. Yet, you have seen the paintings which psychologically force you to believe they were white. The soft-skinned, blonde-bearded Jesus, the European Moses with marble-white hands clutching stone tablets, the curly-haired David serenading with a harp straight from an Italian fresco. But here's the truth, no one dares say out loud. These aren't just inaccuracies, they are deliberate historical distortions. The Bible wasn't written in Europe. Its great men didn't walk the streets of Rome or London. They were born and raised in lands we now call Africa and the Middle East, regions rich in sunlight, heritage, and melanin. These men, prophets, kings, warriors, and liberators, were black. Not symbolically, not figuratively, literally. However, for centuries, colonizers and church artists have repainted sacred history to match their own faces. But today, archaeology, language, geography, and genetics are painting it back, this time, in truth. So, who were these great black men of the Bible? And why has their legacy been buried under centuries of artistic lies and religious whitewashing? In this video, let's expose what they tried to erase. Number 1. Adam, humanity's first black ancestor. When the Bible describes God creating Adam, it says he formed him from the dust of the ground. But the original Hebrew word for ground is Adamah, and it doesn't imply pale sand or chalky earth. It refers to rich, reddish-brown soil, the kind found in Africa, not in the cold, pale regions of Northern Europe. Even the name Adam itself is linguistically tied to that same soil, reinforcing the idea that the Bible is literally describing a man made from dark, earthy matter. This is not poetic. It is geographical, cultural, and scientific. And it points us directly to a black origin. Scientists today agree with what ancient texts hinted at for centuries. All modern humans trace their roots back to East Africa. This isn't a fringe theory, it's mainstream science. Studies of mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome evidence all converge on one point. The earliest Homo sapiens evolved and lived in Africa, particularly in regions we now know as Ethiopia, Sudan, and Kenya. These first people were dark-skinned. The mutations for lighter skin tones didn't develop until humans migrated to parts of the world with less sunlight, and even then, it took thousands of years. Adam, as the very first man, existed before those mutations ever occurred. His genetic makeup, his environment, and the earth he was formed from all point to one thing: Adam was black. Even the Garden of Eden, often mythologized into some vague heavenly paradise, is described with astonishing geographic clarity. Genesis 2 tells us of 4 rivers that flowed from Eden: the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Pishon, and the Gihon. Most notably, the Gihon is said to surround the land of Cush, which was the ancient name for the region we now call Sudan and southern Egypt, historically and undeniably African. These rivers place Eden between the Horn of Africa and Mesopotamia, a zone rich with early human activity and home to civilizations built by black people. If Eden sat in black land, and Adam came from that land, it is not only likely but inevitable that Adam, the father of all humanity, was a black man, long before any light-skinned populations ever appeared. Number 2. Abraham, the original Hebrew, was no European. The man known as Abraham, respected as the father of 3 major world religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, has been widely misrepresented in art, literature, and pop culture as a European patriarch. But history, genetics, and scripture all say otherwise. Abraham was born in Ur of the Chaldees, a city located in modern-day southern Iraq, near the Persian Gulf. This area was populated by Semitic Afro-Asiatic peoples, part of the broader black civilizations that extended from East Africa to Mesopotamia. He descended from Shem, one of Noah's sons, and the Shemitic bloodline is consistently linked to Afro-Asiatic languages and cultures, including Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, and even Ethiopian tongues like Amharic and Tigrinya. What's remarkable is that the Afro-Asiatic language group not only connects Abraham to Africa linguistically, but also ethnically. The Afro-Asiatic peoples historically shared dark skin, broad noses, and tightly curled hair, traits we associate with Black identity today. These people lived across Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, Sudan, Egypt, and the Levant. If you mapped Abraham's world, you would find he traveled exclusively through lands occupied by Black populations, like Ur, Canaan, Egypt, and the Negev. He wasn't just passing through, he belonged. Even more telling are the relationships Abraham had. He interacted easily with pharaohs, settled in Canaan, and struck covenants with Hamitic tribes, all groups documented as being of African descent. None of these encounters shows Abraham being treated as an outsider due to race. That's because he shared the same skin color and cultural norms. His wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and even his maidservant Hagar were part of this same Semitic African heritage. And as if to further prove his connection to Black resistance, the Book of Jasher recounts a story where Abraham confronts the Black king Nimrod, a man worshipped as a god, and is thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to submit to idol worship. Abraham miraculously survives, not only affirming his faith, but solidifying his status as a spiritual revolutionary from within Black civilization, not outside of it. So the whitewashed imagery of Abraham standing in the deserts of Europe is pure fantasy. He was a Black nomad, walking between Africa and the Middle East, carrying a covenant that would reshape history. His children, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, continued that legacy, not as pale-skinned patriarchs, but as Black men rooted in the soil of Afro-Asiatic culture. Number 3. Moses, the African liberated prince. Perhaps no figure in the Old Testament embodies liberation and leadership more than Moses, but even his image has been hijacked. In films and Western art, he is depicted as a bearded white man, Charlton Heston style, with flowing robes and a glowing halo. But that's not the man who led slaves out of Egypt. The real Moses was a Black man, born into Hebrew slavery, and raised in the heart of ancient Black Egypt, a kingdom that, at the time, was one of the most advanced and powerful Black civilizations in the world. Scripture tells us that Moses was placed in a basket and found by Pharaoh's daughter, who then raised him in the palace as her own. Now ask yourself, how could a white Hebrew baby survive in the royal household of a Black African king without being noticed as foreign? He couldn't. The only reason Pharaoh's daughter believed he was Egyptian was because he looked like them. In Acts chapter 7, verse 22, the New Testament even affirms that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and mighty in words and deeds. He wasn't just raised among Africans, he became one of them, indistinguishable in appearance. Modern archaeology supports this identity. Pharaoh Seti I, who ruled at the time of Moses' adoption, was depicted in carvings and statues as a dark-skinned man, consistent with Nubian and Egyptian ancestry. The tombs, murals, and artifacts left behind from that period show a civilization proud of its Black identity, not hiding it. Moses would have walked those palace halls as a Black prince, fluent in Egyptian culture and appearance. So Moses was not a pale outsider speaking to a brown crowd. He was a Black liberator, shaped by Black culture, leading his people not into whiteness, but into freedom, faith, and divine destiny. His very life embodied what Western tradition tried to suppress. The core of biblical leadership sprang from Black identity and African soil. Number 4. Joshua, the Black conqueror of Jericho. Joshua's rise was not accidental. It was the continuation of a Black Hebrew legacy rooted in African soil. He was not simply Moses' apprentice, but his chosen successor, leading a nomadic nation into conquest, not with chariots or catapults, but with faith that moved walls. Joshua was a descendant of Ephraim, one of Joseph's sons born to an Egyptian woman, Asenath. herself the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, a high-ranking figure in ancient Black Egypt. This makes Joshua the biological grandson of Black African nobility, placing African blood not just in his veins, but in the spiritual DNA of Israel's conquest story. His most iconic feat came when he stood before Jericho, a heavily fortified city believed to be unconquerable. He didn't attack it with brute force. He followed divine instruction. For 7 days, he and his army marched around the walls. On the 7th day, the trumpets blew, the people shouted, and Jericho's walls crumbled to the ground. No siege, no swords, just a miracle led by a man deeply attuned to divine strategy, a man whose identity has been erased from his own story. Archaeological excavations at Tel es-Sultan, the site of ancient Jericho, show collapsed walls and layers of ash and destruction. The pattern of the ruins matches the biblical narrative remarkably well. Archaeologist Bryant Wood has pointed to evidence that the city walls fell outward, a rare occurrence in ancient warfare, making way for an easy invasion, just as the Bible describes. This isn't just a religious myth. It's documented history, echoing the footsteps of a Black military leader executing a divine plan. Joshua wasn't a medieval crusader in shining European armor. He didn't ride on a white horse beneath a cross. He was a Black warrior, descended from African matriarchs and Semitic patriarchs, carrying the torch of liberation Moses had lit. And he fulfilled that mission, not by conquest alone, but through faith, born of struggle, the kind only a Black people's story could tell. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black Africa. Let's continue now. Number 5. Samson, the Nubian judge with superhuman strength. In the pantheon of biblical heroes, Samson stands out like a thunderstorm. He wasn't just strong, he was terrifyingly powerful, single-handedly slaughtering enemies, lifting city gates, and shattering stone temples with his bare hands. But his strength was not mythic in origin. It was rooted in divine favor. And his identity? Firmly rooted in Black ancestry. Samson was born into the tribe of Dan, one of the tribes descended from Jacob and settled among the Canaanites, a population known from historical records and archaeological evidence to be dark-skinned Afro-Asiatic people. Canaan was the son of Ham, whose lineage is closely linked to the peoples of Cush, modern-day Ethiopia, Mizraim, modern-day Egypt, and Put, modern-day Libya, all ancient Black civilizations. Samson lived among them, loved among them, and fought their enemies. He wasn't a white, muscle-bound Greek hero. He was a Black man of immense physical and spiritual power. His story reads like an ancient African epic. He killed a lion with his bare hands. He burned the Philistines' fields with foxes tied together by flaming torches. And when Delilah betrayed him, cutting his hair, the source of his divine strength, he didn't go out quietly. Blinded, shackled, humiliated, Samson stood between two pillars of a Philistine temple, called on God one last time, and brought the structure crashing down on his captors and himself, dying with more enemies than he had ever slain in life. That final act wasn't just revenge, it was Black resistance in its rawest form. The story of Samson is more than an allegory. A seal discovered at Beit Shemesh in 2012 depicts a man battling a large lion, a direct parallel to Samson's feat described in Judges 14. The artifact dates to the time of the Judges, the exact period when Samson would have lived. Combined with the location and imagery, scholars agree, this could be the first archaeological clue to Samson's real existence. Number 6. David, the Black king with a lion's heart. Long before he was crowned king, David was a shepherd boy, sun-drenched and fearless, singing to sheep by day and slinging stones by night. The Bible describes him as ruddy, a term that in ancient Hebrew doesn't imply whiteness, but reddish-brown skin, the hue of clay-baked earth under the Middle Eastern sun. His appearance, like his bloodline, was deeply African Semite. David was born in Bethlehem, an ancient city in Judea, surrounded by the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, all of whom descended from Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. We already know Abraham was a black man with Afro-Asiatic roots, and David's ancestry is a direct continuation of that line. His world wasn't shaped by European kings or Roman marble columns. It was formed in the dusty hills of black Semitic lands among Nubians, Ethiopians, and Canaanites. David sang, ruled, and fought like a lion. And like many black kings before and after him, his greatness has been hijacked and whitened by centuries of art and empire. But history knows who he truly was. Number 7. Solomon, the dark and lovely king of wisdom. "I am black and beautiful," Solomon wrote in Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 5, and the world has tried to make it a metaphor ever since. But there is no metaphor in black like the tents of Kedar. Those were literal tents, made of dark goat hair, stretched across the desert. Solomon wasn't being poetic about his emotions. He was describing his skin. Solomon was the son of David and Bathsheba, and he inherited not only his father's throne, but his black Semitic heritage. His reign marked a golden era of peace, wisdom, and architectural glory. Solomon didn't rule over a backwater village. He presided over a vast trade empire, connecting Israel with Sheba, Egypt, and Arabia. These were African and Semitic civilizations, with trade networks stretching into Ethiopia, Yemen, and the Red Sea. When the Queen of Sheba, a powerful African monarch, came to visit him, it wasn't just a diplomatic gesture, it was a meeting of two black royal minds. The account in 1 Kings 10 describes her bringing gold, spices, and precious stones in quantities never seen before. This was not a journey of curiosity. It was a pan-African alliance rooted in shared culture, complexion, and wisdom. Now, recent archaeological finds support this connection. Shebaic inscriptions, discovered near the Temple Mount, confirm trade links between South Arabia, ancient Sheba, and Jerusalem. Linguist Daniel Vainstob has argued that these inscriptions were in the language of Sheba, dated precisely to the time of Solomon, offering hard proof that Solomon's world was interconnected with the Black Kingdoms of Africa. Solomon also married Pharaoh's daughter, and we know Egypt at that time was ruled by Black Nubian pharaohs, such as those from the 25th dynasty. His wives, his allies, his poetry, and his own words all point in one direction. Solomon was a Black king whose wisdom reached the ends of the earth. Number 8. Elijah, the Black prophet who called down fire. Elijah came from Gilead, a region populated by Amorites and Canaanites, both historically Black groups. He is described simply as Elijah the Tishbite, but his actions were anything but simple. He defied kings, raised the dead, and called fire from the sky. His story is one of Black prophecy and confrontation with corrupt power. Excavations at Tel Rehav uncovered pottery bearing the name Elijah, rare and specific, dated to the same era. This prophet didn't just preach. He transformed a nation and vanished into the heavens, body and soul. Number 9. Daniel, the Black diplomat in Babylonian chains. Daniel was taken from Jerusalem to Babylon during the exile, a city where Black Africans and Semites were often enslaved, assimilated, or elevated for their talents. Given new names, Daniel and his companions stood firm against forced assimilation. He interpreted dreams, defied royal decrees, and survived the lion's den, earning positions of power within Babylon's court. Babylonian records and the Nebuchadnezzar Chronicles confirm the empire's existence, its kings, and its complex multicultural makeup. Daniel's roots in Judah, among Black Hebrews, suggest he too was a Black intellectual, revered in the empire's most powerful halls. Number 10. Jesus, the Black Messiah, the world whitewashed. If Jesus were white, how did he hide in Egypt? Why would Roman guards fail to spot him among Africans? The Bible gives us clues. Hair like wool, feet like bronze burned in a furnace. These aren't European features. They are Black features. He was born in Bethlehem, raised in Nazareth, and descended from David, Solomon, and Abraham. His entire lineage is tied to Black Semitic and African ancestry. Even early Christian art from Ethiopia and Nubia depicts Jesus as a black man, long before Europe turned him into a blonde demigod. In 1990, archaeologists uncovered a tomb linked to Caiaphas, the priest who oversaw Jesus' trial. It confirmed the historical timeline of Jesus' life. This isn't a myth. This was a black man who changed the world. What do you think? If the Garden of Eden was in Africa, how could Adam possibly be white? Why did Pharaoh's daughter mistake Moses for her own Egyptian child if he didn't look African? In the comment section below, share your thoughts on how you imagine these biblical figures. White or black? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on Black Africa, its history, rich arts and culture, and things the world should know about. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.